Yo, Shortbox Nation, this is Botter, and I'm here to tell you right now that con season starts early this year with the return of Northeast Florida's premier anime, comic book, and sci-fi event, Collective Con. That's right, Northeast Florida's largest pop culture convention returns for its 10th year on March 8th through the 10th at the Prime Osborne Center in Jacksonville, Florida. 10 years of Collective Con, they're pulling all the stops out to make sure this is a can't-miss event. And the guest list they got going, don't even get me started on the guest list. I mean, they've got A-list celebrity guests and voice actors from some of your favorite movies, anime, and video games like Elijah Wood and Sean Ashton, Ray Park, Trisha Helfer, Ross Marquand, Max Middleman, and Bo-Katan herself will be there, Katie Sackhoff. Tell me what other convention is giving you the opportunity to meet Frodo and Sam from Lord of the Rings, Darth Maul, and One Punch Man all under the same roof. Only at Collective Con. And if you're looking to get some of your favorite comics signed, or if you want to get an original sketch from some of the best comic artists in the world, well, you're in luck, because there'll be plenty of comic and creator guests there, like DC comic artist extraordinaire Clay Mann, Harvey Award-nominated illustrator John Taylor Christopher, Marvel and DC cover artist Chris Stevens, and acclaimed Star Wars author Timothy Zahn. They'll all be at Collective Con this year. And if you're looking to bring the family, or if you want to make a weekend out of it, you're in luck, because there'll be so much going on at Collective Con that weekend in the form of vendors, fan panels, video game tournaments, cosplay contests, after parties, and a bunch of fan events. You can purchase single and 3-day weekend passes now using the link in this episode's show notes, or by going to collectivecon.com to book your tickets and hotel. Buy your tickets now, and I'll see you at Collective Con, March 8th through the 10th. Now let's start the show. Yo, Shortbox Nation. Welcome back. Yo, and new friends and first timers, welcome to the show. You're now tuned into the Shortbox Podcast. And my name is Botter Milligan. This week we got a special bonus episode for you, mainly because last week we decided to take a break and enjoy the holiday weekend. Hopefully you got to do the same. This week, we're going to share an episode from a new bi-weekly bonus series that I've been doing. It's called Pod Boys, and I've been hosting these episodes alongside my good friend, past guest, and Shortbox alumni himself, Mr. Warren Evans, a.k.a. the Bart of Darkness. You might recognize him from his Simpsons collection on Instagram and Twitter.
Be honest, it's great, isn't it? Go ahead and say it's great if you want to.
But he's also the host of his own podcast called Simpsons is Greater Than. He's about 34 episodes deep. You should check out his podcast if you haven't. And you can think of Pod Boys as the after show of our podcast. So it's a much more laid-back setting where me and Warren can talk about all different types of topics related to podcasting, of course, but also life, Simpsons, comics, and whatever else you can imagine. We record these live on Instagram about every 2 weeks, and then we put it out in podcast form. I would love to go ahead and share these episodes on the Shortbox feed, so let me know what you think about this after you listen to it. And be sure to tune back in next Wednesday when the full crew, Ashley, Ed, and Cesar, return. We'll be doing a low-key episode in preparation for the Disney Plus series of the same name, of course. So low-key episode next Wednesday. I'm going to keep this short and sweet because I want you to enjoy your first preview of Pod Boys. So here's the episode, and I'll catch you next week, all right? Peace.
Am I blurry this time, Botter? Am I good?
No, you're actually crystal.
Man, now come on. Okay, so to formally introduce those that are new to this, welcome to the most cursed podcast after show in the game, Pod Boys. You might know it from these lives. You might know it from the feed of the actual podcast as bonus episodes, but something always goes wrong, and you can't tell in some of the audio, but last time, your man was looking, super low D, if you know what I'm saying. Like, it was bad.
It wasn't even 2D. It was like 1D. It was like 1990s.
Well, let me tell you the best part about it is Botter and people in the chat told me that I looked bad, and I proceeded to be like, well, I don't know what to tell you because I look fine. Anyway, moving on. So when I watched that video back, I was like, man, this is ridiculous. This is terrible. But we survived. The audio is going to sound very good when it hits that feed next week. And so it's all good. So how's everybody doing? I forgot to get a Dr. Pepper. So I have no cool drink to open, but what I will do in honor of my childhood, I've been hooked on these again, Botter, and I'm going to ask you about this. I want to know what yours is, but
hit it.
I've been back on the Twizzlers, man.
Oh my God.
And I'm just going to make sure that the mic gets all of this wrapper just going off in the mic here. And we're just going to pop open a Twizzler.
Get that gnat sound going.
Yeah,
People
this
love
is a little
hearing some rappers.
Twizzler ASMR. That's all this is.
Ooh.
So, all right, we're going to get this open. Make sure we get a little extra plastic. All right, sounds good. And see, what
There's
I
this
like to
lady-
do is you don't play around. You just take the whole Twizzler. I'm going to get called a psycho for this. You just wrap it all up.
Whoa, yeah, that is some psychotic shit right there. I've never seen anyone eat a whole Twizzler as a Twizzler roll. It looked like a Twizzler sushi roll.
It's going to take me a minute.
I know. That's why no one eats it in one sitting, much less on a fucking podcast. Sorry. Much less on a podcast do they eat a whole Twizzler. It takes you at least 5 minutes. You're like, oh, God.
No,
terrible
this
decision.
is what you guys can expect from Pod Boys. I'm going to be eating full Twizzlers. This is some horrible ASMR. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it is. But here, I'll go ahead and give a shout out.
You talk about it. Go ahead. You vamp.
Let's see who we got. Let's see. We got Simpson Collector had. Oh, damn. Okay. We got Rutherford Dashley joined. Shout outs to them. Simpsons Collector. Shout outs to you. Saturday of Thunder joined. Shout outs to you. Alex Simpsons 23. Yo, yo, yo.
Oh.
Let's see who else we got.
Shout out to
Mr.
everybody.
Eric. Yo, Eric Almighty from the Wait For It podcast.
Yo, I like
has
that.
joined. Yo, what's up, baby? We got Angel Baby Love. Shout outs. Gam in the house, I see. And then CW Toasterman.
Yeah, lots of people.
Once again.
Lots of people coming through. And also, if you're hearing this on the podcast feed, I'm going to stress this again. This is episode 4.
Please.
If you're hearing this on the podcast feed and you want to hang out with us when we record these, you got to be following us on Instagram, baby. Come on. Go hit that follow button on both, and then you see when we go live. You can hang out with us, and you can even ask us questions and do whatever you want. I'm noticing that Instagram Live, which is how we record these, if you don't know, has a bunch of new buttons in my camera. I don't know if you're seeing that on your end, Botter.
No, yeah. It's like 4 of them, right?
Yeah,
like a
that's
turnaround sticker.
Yeah, that's wild. Instagram, I love you, but if you could just chill out with the added features, man, it's becoming a little much for me. You're making me feel old. I'm not that old, okay?
No, for sure. And I think it's safe to probably bring up to the folks who are joining us live for this on Instagram that, if you don't stick around the whole time, I don't blame you. I mean, I'm a little disappointed, but I don't blame you. You can always catch the full episode and the full recording in podcast format on Warren's show, Simpsons Greater Than. So if you miss if you miss out a few episodes or minutes, check out the podcast.
Yeah, and feel free to hang out and then catch up when you listen back to the audio version. And they sound better than this. You're hearing us on AirPods. When you get the audio feed version, you're getting a full actual podcast style recording. But whatever. We don't have to go on about that. Botter, how are you this evening, man? How are you doing?
Yo, I am well. I'm off work. I got me a little Friday juice, as I like to call it, to bring in the weekend.
Like that.
Besides that, not too bad, man. I got a pretty open weekend for the most part. I'm gonna do some relaxing. How are you doing today?
I'm good, man. Same thing. A bit of a long week. I'm glad to be off. I forgot a Dr. Pepper today, so I'm a little sad about that. I like to, everybody knows by now if they're listening to these, I like to pop one open. So I'm missing my Friday Dr. Pepper fix. Which again makes me sound like a really old man, but I'm good. I'm doing good. Pod Boys is rolling right now, so I'm feeling real good about that. Simpsons did it. Pod, what's up? Michael Goodpastor, what's up? Everyone in the chat, what is going on?
Yo, what's good?
So we got a couple things to talk about today, and nothing too crazy in this episode. You'll notice if you listen to these episodes, we touch on some similar stuff, and it's like I always say, it's the after show. If you follow Shortbox, if you follow Simpsons is Greater Than, this is just sort of where we talk about, all the other little things we got going on that we might not touch on in the podcast. And you might get to know us a little bit better through Pod Boys than you do the podcast. Well, actually, if you listen to Botter, you know him by now because he's been podcasting for 30 years. But you might get to know some things about us that you don't know from just listening to the normal episodes. And that's what Pod Boys is. So Botter, tell me, what podcasts have you put out in the last 2 weeks?
Okay, so last 2 weeks. So I'll start out with this week. This week was our... Oh my God, what was our show last week? All right, anyways, this week we actually put out 2 episodes, right? Like sometimes the weeks start fading in. You're like, was it 320? 4? Anyways, but this week we put out 2 episodes. We put out a bonus episode on Monday, and that was to talk about the Invincible season finale. We had, a small show, indie cartoon. Yeah, not a lot of people was up on it. So we put out a Invincible kind of reaction recap episode on Monday. And then on Wednesday, our normal podcast days, we put out an episode about Jupiter's Legacy, which is a new show on Netflix. That episode 1 actually premiered today. I don't know if they put out the whole season or not, but I know that it premiered today. Whoa. So we went ahead and talked about the comic book, the source material for the show, on Wednesday's show. And it was nice. It was like, gave me a chance to revisit the comic book, which I read many years ago, and enjoyed it a lot. So seeing it, it's one of the last comic books I would have ever thought would have gotten a show. But when you learn about Mark Millar, the guy who wrote the show, and how he basically started a comic book publishing company called Millar's World, where he kind of went in with the tactic of, I'm noticing all of these comic book movies and shows. Let me start my own imprint, write my own comic books with the mindset of selling these to production companies. And that's what he's done. I mean, he's given us Kingsman, Wanted, now Jupiter's Legacy. There's a fourth one I can't remember off the top of my head, but he's also played a big part in like the MCU movies. So like Civil War, the third Captain America movie, he actually wrote the comic book series that is based off of. Avengers #1, he wrote a comic series called Ultimates that Avengers #1 took a lot from. So he's really big in like, as far as his influence as far as like comic books and the shows and movies and live action stuff is dominant. So it's nice to like talk about Mark Millar, Jupiter's Legacy on Wednesday's show. And then if I'm not mistaken, last week's episode was about something else. I can't recall off the top of my head right now. I'll look it up. But what did you put out in these last 2 weeks?
Well, you talked about a couple of things in there that I want to touch on real quick.
Yeah,
and we'll talk about Invincible a little bit later. If you've been listening to Bob Boys, you know that I loved Invincible, or at least I was getting caught up in previous episodes, and I got a lot to say about that. As for, Jupiter's Legacy, I have not seen that, but you have made me curious. But these days, what I think is interesting is everybody, like if there's a comic book that has not been made into something, with all this streaming and all these different places looking at material, someone is looking at that and thinking, hey, can we do something with this? It's kind of crazy how every single corner of comic books, someone has their eye on. Someone wants to make something out of it. There's no way anyone imagined this sort of comic related content that we're seeing in 2021. And I know you feel that with your show, especially, but it's wild, man.
Yo, this is Botter. Sorry for interrupting this episode, but I'll keep it brief. I wanted to let you know about a massive sale we have going on over at the Shortbox store on all of our merchandise and apparel. That's theshortboxstore.bigcartel.com. You can now save 20% off your entire order using the discount code YOO, Y-O-O. So if you've been waiting for the right time to finally buy that gauntlet snapback, or if you ever wanted to buy any of the shirts you see me wear on the podcast, well, now's your chance to get them for a steal. We still have a few sizes left of everything, but they won't last long, and once they're gone, they are gone. And then I mentioned that all of our apparel is screen printed on high quality material. None of that heat transfer or direct to garment stuff. Our shirts are some of the most comfortable ones you'll ever wear, and the hats look even better in person. So wear your support for the Shortbox Nation proudly, knowing that you're going to look damn good doing it. Get to theshortboxstore.bigcartel.com as soon as you can, and don't forget to use that discount code YOO, Y-O-O, to save 20% off your entire order. All of this information can be found in this episode's show notes if you want to get there faster. Thanks for not pressing fast forward. Now back to the show. It is. I on Twitter, I see a lot people, reviewers, fellow podcasters, and writers of comic book journalism have talked a lot about how it's helpful in the sense that it brings the comic book market to the forefront, the comic culture to the forefront, but sometimes it tends to hinder like writing comics, because a lot of folks are getting in with the idea of I'm gonna write a quick little 5-issue story and hope I can sell it to a big network.
Right.
So there's no the idea of longevity isn't there as much anymore. So there is a lot of pros and a lot of cons. I'm hoping this Jupiter's Legacy is on point because I'm looking forward to checking it out.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it's going to be really cool, man. As for me, these last 2 weeks, so I wasn't even going to bring this up, but I'm sure you all noticed I took another week off this week. I had a bit of a technical difficulty with the last episode. I didn't lose the episode, but I just knew it was going to take a little bit of extra editing. And I won't go into which episode it is, but there were some issues that I've never had with my microphone and my program that I use to record. And so I'm going to have to do a little surgery to fix some of that. I don't think anyone will notice when I'm done, but I didn't have time to fix it before the episode went up. So I said, you know what, I'm going to take the week off. But the last 2 episodes before that, I think we touched on them in other Pod Boys, but I released an episode with Lisa Traeger, comedian, very funny. I really like that episode a lot. And also, we talked about, I brought Bill Morrison back. And if you listen to that episode, I think it's safe to say that Bill Morrison will be back several times, because I can talk to Bill for hours. He's so full of knowledge, and he already at the end of that episode, if you listened, he was like, "Hey, if you would have me back a third time, I already have an idea what we could do." So Bill has a lot of fun on the podcast, and that's really exciting to me. And so I'm excited to do more stuff with him in the future, and maybe even stuff that's not a normal episode. So I won't spoil anything too serious, but there's some stuff in the talks, I'll say, some ideas out there.
What episode did you first have Bill Morrison on? Wasn't he in like your first 5 or something?
No,
like
he was number 14, I believe. He was episode 14. So, but I mean, in podcast years, that's like 14 episodes. That's several months. So feels like a lifetime ago.
For sure. So how much did you feel more confident speaking to him again now that you had that rapport and whatnot? Like, how did you go about talking to the same guest a second time?
So I knew after the first one that there was a lot of stuff that I didn't really, there's a lot of stuff that I asked him, but there was stuff that I learned that I thought I knew a ton about Bill Morrison. And there was things in that first interview that I was picking up on and I was learning. And so I thought to myself, like, hey, I want to expand on this thing that we touched on for a minute. And, he told me about like a Simpsons item that I've never heard of. And if you listen to the episode, you hear my brain like fall out of my head. Like I almost get upset at one point. Like, what are you talking about? Like, so there's a lot of stuff that I learned in that. And that just tells me that there's stuff I will learn from Bill ongoing about his art, his contribution, Bongo Comics, his continued involvement with the show, and even like DC, things he did with DC, things he did with Mad Magazine. Bill has such an accomplished, cool career that I feel like he's just someone I'm going to want to talk to every few months or however often, So it's cool interviewing someone again, man. You actually, you approach it totally differently, and I recommend it. So Botter, just start interviewing everyone again. Go ahead.
I would love to get like certain reprieves on certain like guests I've had on where I've just blotched the interview, but I'm glad you had a good time with Bill Morrison. I mean, just that first episode you had him on, that's one I definitely remember listening to front and back. And I mean, that dude's catalog and resume and just like life is so interesting, man. That dude has, and of course, as a fellow comic head, the way he talks about comic books and his knowledge just resonate. Like I was like, damn, like this is the interview I try to have on our show. So it's cool to like see you kind of go about it that way and get like lean in on the comic book stuff, Sometimes, like your guest goes in a certain direction and it's not the direction that either like sometimes you wanted to go or maybe you're knowledgeable in, but sometimes it's just fun to let them like just put it all out there and like kind of watch a fellow human being like get excited about something that ignites their passion and stuff. That's definitely one of the benefits I love of podcasting. It's like hearing the passion of professionals. It paints a very clear picture of that's why you're successful. Not only do you have the technical skills and the talent, but that passion, man. Like you can just spot it. You can spot a true professional's passion anywhere.
Yeah, that's well said, man. And also, like, anyone that likes the comic book talk, this most recent one, if you're not there yet, there's a lot of comic book talk. I actually had to stop myself and be like, all right, this is a Simpsons podcast. Okay, I'm gonna stop talking about Marvel and DC and all that. So there's a lot of comic book talk, and Bill. This is not the Bill Morrison after show, but he loves. He still draws on paper. There's all these things about Bill that is truly classic. So go listen to that one. And I think everyone will enjoy it. Butter, what we got next, man? What else we touching on?
Well, so we're talking. Oh, and I remembered the other episode. So we put out the Invincible season finale this week, and then we also talked about Jupiter's Legacy. The week prior was our first week back with the full crew, so it was Cesar, Ashley, and Ed. And we wanted to do something a little different than our normal comic book deep dives or interviews or artist spotlights. We decided to just do one of our we call them short box, news or stories. So everyone brought in one or two articles, headlines from the recent last 2 weeks that we were like, hey, did you guys know this is going on? Or, yo, this is happening, or this is coming out. And it turned out to be a really fun episode. Cesar covered Marvel acquiring Alien property, which kind of, I think, flew underneath a lot of people's radar. Ashley had a really good topic, and it was just a fun smorgasbord of comic book news and headlines. So that was the previous week. But talking about Jupiter's Legacy and comic books and whatnot, I was curious to hear what shows are you watching? Did you ever? I know that you watched Invincible. You were a little upset I didn't have you for the season finale. My apologies. But did you also get caught up with Falcon and Winter Soldier? What are you watching in general, I guess, too?
So, I first of all, like I said at the top, I loved Invincible. Anyone that knows me, and if you listen to this podcast, I've probably talked about it. If you listen to Simpsons is Greater Than, I should say. You probably heard me say that I'm an emotional guy, and there's a lot, I get very emotionally connected to things, even The Simpsons, obviously. And Invincible, I went into it with such, I won't say low expectations, but I did not know what I was getting into, and I didn't know anything going in. And by the end, I was very emotionally invested. That finale really got to me, really moved me, and it was really, really great. So if you're not watching Invincible, this Pod Boys might as well be sponsored by Invincible. I think I found a way to just at least mention it in every episode. Yeah. But Invincible is great, so go fucking watch that, please. Falcon and Winter Soldier, I know you sort of cooked me for not watching that in a previous episode on here and in life. And I finally started it. I really liked it. I have one episode left. I was sort of saving that finale, so I'm going to watch that this weekend. Other than that, man, I've gotten really, I don't know if anyone feels me on this, I've gotten really into a YouTube show that's been around for a long time. It's new to me, and that is Good Mythical Morning with Rhett and Link. I don't know if anyone's familiar with those guys, but they were early to the YouTube game. They really knew early on that YouTube was going to be a thing, and they started this daily show where it's a little 15-minute show that they do every morning. And, they do everything from shuffleboard games where they're trying to guess how old a superhero is, or they'll do, they'll turn different foods into grilled cheeses. It's silly and great and fun. So anyone that's looking for something to just take the edge off, I recommend Good Mythical Morning a lot. And anything on the Mythical channel, there's Mythical Kitchen and all of these other things. So a lot of good stuff there. And then of course, The Simpsons. And The Circle. I don't know if anybody watches The Circle on Netflix.
What's The Circle?
The Circle is really bad but great reality TV. So anyone that hasn't seen that, so I'll set the stage for you before we move on. But hit it. So these people, they're all in separate apartments. Some of them are really the person. Some of them are catfish, and they only talk through an app. They can only communicate through an app. Okay, yeah. And they try to, build friendships and make it to the end, and they win money. And it's really, you know what? I'm not going to call it bad. There's a lot of really bad reality TV. It can be a little silly at times, but it really is an intriguing concept to me. And I think anyone that needs something new to watch, that should also be on the list. I see where Angel Baby Love said, loved Invincible, can't wait for the second season. I am so ready for the second season that if I had a click style remote to fast forward time, I would jump straight to the second season. I can't wait.
I was so happy to see the announcement that they got renewed for seasons 2 and 3. I was 3.
Let's not even waste time.
Well, exactly. It's come on, y'all know. Yeah, give us 4 and 5 too while you're at it, because we're about to knock it out the park. Yeah, I'm excited for it. I did step into your world last night. Actually, I had some time to actually sit down and watch some TV, and I went on Disney Plus, and I was looking for the Simpsons Star Wars special because I just watched Bad Batch. Have you watched Bad Batch yet? The new animated Star Wars show.
I'm going to start it soon. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a pretty good first episode. But I was looking for the Simpsons Star Wars special, and I was like, "Oh, dang! Simpsons is up on like these like annual like because I know Family Guy had a running year like a couple years where they were doing a special every year. But I was really excited to see the Simpsons one. Did not know it was only a 3-minute like Maggie short. I was definitely a little bit like, what? But thoroughly enjoyed it, man. Like, I love anytime they work Darth Maul into stuff because he's one of my favorite characters. So to see like Maggie have a little bit of shine and like play into the Star Wars stuff was really fun. That was like all the little cameos and like call outs. It was super fun.
I know there's people out there that don't like those Maggie shorts or they think they're a little too cute. And I don't know if I've talked about this on Simpsons.
That is such a weak excuse. Yo, it's too cute, dog. Like, what? Well, yes, it's a baby, bro.
But let me tell you why, though. There's a lot of people that think that it's a direct response to Disney, but people don't realize they were making those before Disney acquired them. So that's not really true. They're a fun thing they've done. I think that's the third one that they've done. And David Silverman worked on it. I mean, it's just, some heavy hitting, older, veteran, experts, Simpsons experts worked on that. So there's, it's fun. And if you don't like it, maybe you just hate fun. So there you go.
No, for sure. That was just, and it's like 3-4 minutes, it's not a commitment to make, but I had a good time watching that. But, I ended up watching that Star Wars Maggie special, the Bad Batch, and then me and Blythe have been rewatching. My girlfriend have been rewatching. We've been trying to like rewatch the MCU in certain chunks. So like with for like Falcon and Winter Soldier, we ended up rewatching all the Captain America movies. So with Loki coming out next month, we're rewatching all the Thor movies. So we rewatched Thor #1 last night, and it's kind of tight, like revisiting some of these movies because I think I've seen every single MCU film in theaters when they first came out. So like kind of comparing, like trying to remember what my feeling were, like seeing this movie in live action or in theaters and now seeing it again has been fun. And to be honest, every single MCU film for the most part has held up. There isn't endgame level good all across the board, but I have not finished any of these MCU watches and thought, waste of time. Nah, Thor 1 was pretty on point.
No, and they're right there. They're so easy and convenient to watch. I'm jealous of that because I really should have been rewatching the MCU films leading up to Falcon and Winter Soldier because that would have been a great way to fill my time. One thing that has been strange for me in regards to my collection and me as a collector is that I've actually been in a bit of a slump with that. So I really should have been filling that time with something good on TV because Simpsons collecting has been at a bit of a standstill. There's not a lot of good stuff popping up. There's not too much to get. Anyone that's heard me complain about those Funko Pops that I ordered on January 1st, I still don't have those.
Which ones are there?
Just the newer ones that they put out, like the Itchy and Scratchy, the Mr. Plow, all of these things. And to be, everyone knows by now that I don't even really like Funko Pops, but I was like, the new Simpsons thing of it all really got me. And I was like, I'll just get these few, but I ordered those like 5 months ago. They're still not here. But just in general, there's not a lot of Simpsons stuff. So Bart of Darkness content has been a little slow, even though I always have things to post, but I just haven't had new things to really show off. And that's been tough. So
you posted a Simpsons steering wheel cover. And I was like, this man has got everything. Not that I didn't already think that. I already had that idea. But when you posted a Simpsons steering wheel, and I was like, this man's got more likes on his steering wheel than some folks have of their like newborn baby.
It's funny you say that, Botter, because
it's a fly steering wheel for the record.
But I was really, really shocked at the response to that. Every comment, anyone that's listening that goes and looks at that post, all the comments were like, "Oh my God, I had this in high school. I had this in my first car. I had the floor mats that went with it." There was so much love for that steering wheel cover. And, going into, Bart of Darkness posts, there are things that when I post them, I know they're a little bizarre and they're probably not going to get people's attention. There's things that I posted. I'm like, there'll be some people that really like this. This might not catch everyone's eye. And I assumed that steering wheel cover was one of those things. I was like, this is a cool thing. I haven't posted a photo of this yet. It's a weird item, but I just don't know if people are going to care. Little did I know that struck a chord in everyone. It's always the stuff I least expect that really gets people excited. That's super weird. But we're talking about Instagram, so I'm gonna shift this conversation a little bit into Reels, because that's something that you and I have been talking about a lot. It's something I've been doing some reading about. On an upcoming episode of the podcast, I talked to Bill Oakley about that a little bit also. And
wait, you talked to Bill Oakley about Instagram Reels? That's kind of a stunt. I ain't gonna lie. That's kind of a stunt.
Well,
it's like me and Bill were just talking about social media.
Bill being the food guy, he's trying to get those views as well. So
okay.
But so Instagram Reels, this is something, and I made this joke elsewhere, but it's the first thing that's made me feel old as far as in social media, in this age of social media. I don't really mess with TikTok or any of that. I don't mess with a lot of social media outside of Instagram, Twitter. But Reels is the first thing that made me feel my age. I was like, man, this might just be a little out of my wheelhouse. Like, this might be a little tough for me. So it took some experimenting. I did some stuff with Bart of Darkness on the Reels that actually did quite well. And I started getting I got some good insight from that. I've done a couple for the podcast that I'm sure some of you have seen. Just using old clips and putting them together with some footage and just making some previews of other episodes, some stuff that I wanted to highlight from certain episodes. But Reels, to those that don't know, are really prioritized by the algorithm. Like, Instagram apparently really likes these. They really want to compete with TikTok. And you're more likely to get that thing to go off than maybe a normal video post or a normal post, period. A lot of P's in that sentence. So, I don't know if anyone's experimented with those or how many of you have, but I got to say that just from the two that I put up on Bart of Darkness and the couple I put up on the podcast, they do seem to work. I do feel like they get a little more attention than normal posts, Botter. Have you messed with that? Have you messed with that at all?
Yes. Yeah, you actually inspired me to make one, right? So I normally post I usually just post videos, video sound bites. So I have a little collage, whether it be going through comic book panels, or if I'm talking about a live show or a trailer or something like that, I'll just have the trailer playing and then have some captions. I'll take a sound bite from the podcast, have captions for that sound bite with the video playing at the same time, and they normally do pretty well. It's been kind of a fun way to show some visuals along with the podcast. Because I will say, having a podcast about a visual medium it's challenging. It can be challenging to promote that, right? It's like, hey, I'm hoping that this caption and these words entice you enough to go check out the podcast. I can't show you everything. And while you're listening, there's no visual medium. I really should be doing YouTube. But, when I started doing the videos and having clips, they were working out pretty well. I think a lot of people were enjoying those, even just as a reference. I had a few folks like, hey, man, I enjoyed the episode. And the video that you put up on the Instagram was a nice visual representation. I had an idea of what you were talking about. But I decided to give Reels a shot. I did, instead of posting it as a regular video, I uploaded it as a Reel. And night and day difference as far as the engagement and the reception, within the first 10 minutes or something like that, very quickly, it was 1,000 plays. And I was like, wait, off this janky ass Reel? Not dissing what I put out there, but I did notice that the Reels it was just a different format, right? It's supposed to be, you got to be a little more focused on vertical. I think some of my pictures were, uploaded a little weird. The quality was a little pixelated. So I didn't have high hopes. I was kind of frustrated at what Reels did. But when I saw the playback, it was inspiring enough to be like, okay, there's something here. Because I've read the same thing too, that Instagram is trying to get the Reels popping, right? You said, they've got a lot of competition. And I think that's why they roll out so much new features every, couple months, because they're trying to play, they're trying to stay above water and be relevant as well. So I think the more you start embracing those new features, whatever they may roll out, Reels in this case, the more they're likely to, the algorithms are likely to be in your favor. Yeah. So I say all that to say, if that one Reel I posted, which I didn't put too much work in, I just repurposed what I would have already done instead of doing as a Reel a video post on my feed, went about it Reel. I was like, okay, there's something here. I just need to figure out how I'm going to do future ones. I think there's a better way. And I'll be honest, it got me thinking about like you did a tour of the room. I thought that was super cool, really simple. I think you had like some pretty good feedback. And I was like, well, I could do that here in the studio. Let me show the podcast studio. I've been really getting into Marvel Legends lately. So I buy an action figure, I feel like, every week.
Okay.
So, I mean, and I'm one of these guys where Monday mail call is my favorite holiday. I end up buying so much stuff off eBay. And I don't know what it is about Monday. Correct me. Tell me if you're in the same boat. But doesn't all your shit from eBay come on Monday? It feels like on Monday, it's like, all right, we're going to wait until Monday for all of this to come, and it's Christmas. So I've been thinking more about maybe like doing Monday mail calls, like just show, hey, here's a random 1972 Marvel calendar I decided to buy because I had a wild hair up my ass on a Saturday. Like, that'd be cool to own, know?
No, I can't. So, I like that. I can't say that mine always show up on Monday, but there is nothing, and this is a fact, there's nothing that your boy loves more than mail. Like, if I'm having a bad day, I mean, so first of all, I get made fun of. I get roasted about this by some of my friends. But if I check the actual, like, the advanced tracking where it shows you like, this is your mail for Thursday, May the 3rd. Like, I check all that. I look at what's coming to me, and I stay up on the tracking. And if I'm having like, if I have a bad day at work, if something's weird, and I see that I've got like a package I've been excited about showing up that day, instant turnaround, man. Instant. Why am I snapping on the podcast? But instant turnaround. And, so that is, I think that's a great idea. I think you should do that. And also the one thing I will complain about Reels, not to cut off your point, is
no.
I don't really love that they make you zoom in. I think I figured out that is part of the issue, because if you make it in a standard ratio, like the ratio that this Instagram Live is in right now is how you make things in, like, say, iMovie. This is about the size. Reels will go all the way to the top of your phone, like past the camera.
Yeah.
Like, so if you go too far to the edge in some of your videos, depending on how you edit them, it will cut off some of that. And that is like something that takes a little getting used to, because some people don't like editing them in the app. And it works well, but it's harder to mess with the music. And if you want to use a clip that doesn't have music, it sort of you can run into some issues with that. So, Reels it's tough.
You've made me a believer in, I just edited that one reel I did in iMovie. And I just love iMovie now. Like, it's, because I tried to edit it in Instagram and I was like, nah, this is a little all over the place for me. Like, I need a tutorial. But iMovie, I was like, well, if I could edit in iMovie, I've got, a base there and export it. It worked out pretty good.
Yeah, no, but I mean, I encourage anyone to mess with Reels.
Oh yeah, for sure.
There is a definite benefit to that I've already seen. And one thing I think is interesting too is that they measure plays and views separately. So it'll actually tell you on your grid how many views, but it'll tell you how many plays on the actual reel. And I think that is interesting, which means, when I Google it, it says otherwise, but that tells me that counts every time someone plays it. So you might have X amount of people that watch through the whole thing multiple times, which is good for the algorithm. That just means that's more time they're staring at your thing. Staring at your thing, that doesn't sound good, but they're staring at your post. And I think that's probably ultimately good for the algorithm. Not that, I've been doing Bart of Darkness for so long now, several years, and I still do not completely understand the algorithm. I always took up for it and told people like, oh, it's designed to help you. Don't be so hard on it, all this shit. But it's hard. And I see it happen to people like me and friends of mine that are constantly on social media, where it does sort of bury some of their posts. They don't get the attention that they, like half their followers may see it. And so, it's not getting any better, guys. It's going to be an issue moving forward with social media that you're just going to have to navigate it. And it can, you can be like me and get pissed off, or you can just remind yourself that it's free and, just do your best to figure it out. As I use Instagram Live right now.
And I think to bring it back to like, some podcaster perspective, I think that's why it's important to kind of emphasize and go into podcasting for that mentality of building, a community on your podcast, reminding folks to subscribe so that way they're up to date. So regardless if they saw your post saying, hey, I got a new episode, go check it out. If they're subscribed to the show on whatever podcast app, like Apple iTunes comes to mind. If you have a new episode, it does bump you up in that, front page of your particular feed. That's why it's important to kind of stay consistent. Because if you miss an episode, if you miss a week or 2 weeks, you kind of get bumped out of that front page feed, and then out of sight, out of mind kind of mentality.
Yeah.
So I will say, as a podcaster, make sure that you are pointing people towards subscribing to the show on podcast on the podcast player of choice, and using. I think for me, I use social media as a reminder. Like if you aren't subscribed but you do enjoy this content or this whatever topic, then go check it out. I use that as more like a reminder.
Yeah, and something that you might not know, Botter, or maybe you do, maybe everybody listening does not, or some people listening don't. It looks nice, too, when you hashtag reels and you see them on that hashtag, because unlike a post or a video, when they see the reel on their popular page or whatever it may be, the featured page, that reel is moving. So it actually, there is, like a visual incentive to click on a reel because you see it moving, you see the people talking, you see the, whatever graphic you make. So people have the ability to look at it and go, oh, what is that? I'm going to check it out. And you don't have to decide on the perfect, front image for those, situations. And I think that's pretty interesting.
Oh, for sure. You got into your influencer content, social media content creator bag.
Oh, come on, man! I'm slacking these days. I'm too busy making this podcast to post enough on Bart of Darkness. So that's something I have to work on. Well, one thing I will say too, we were talking about shows that we're watching and things like that. One thing I will say that I've been trying to do since I didn't release an episode this week is catch up on other podcasts. I've talked about a lot how I fall behind on other podcasts, and there's no better way to get behind on podcasts than having your own podcast.
For sure.
Man, so many P's in all these sentences tonight. And so I've been really making it a priority to get back to listening to some of the podcasts that I like, Talking Simpsons, Bodega Boys, Axe to Grind, The Short Box. So I've been really trying to, grind out and get current with a lot of those shows. And I got to say, it's really nice to take a break from working on a podcast and just remember why you enjoy listening to podcasts and just the information that you pull from them and the things that you put in your brain that you can use on your own show or just, moving forward in life. Man. So there you go.
I was listening to one of my favorite podcasts. And to your point, you're right. If you want to fall out of the podcast, world, then start your own podcast, because then you'll never have time to listen. Either you won't have time or you won't want to listen to any other podcast because you're like, I should be doing something with my show. But I've gotten back to making a habit out of certain shows. Like my favorite one right now is called Juan Epstein. It drops every Tuesday. It features Cypher Sounds and Peter Rosenberg. Both of them used to be Hot 90 or DJs and what do you want to call it? I guess a host on Hot 97, the New York hip hop station of, the hip hop New York station,
right?
New York hip hop station. But anyways, every Tuesday they release a show, and I look forward to it, man. Like it is I don't listen to many other comic podcasts. I will be honest. It's just, I talk about it week in, week out. I really just don't have the energy after I'm done doing my show, putting it out, obsessing over it, to even think about listening to comic book talk anywhere else. So all my podcasts tend to be like hip hop and conversational. Those are like my two favorite, especially like hip hop. But I say that to say their episodes, it's nice to have a show that you look forward to. And because both of them used to be, on-air personalities, especially Peter Rosenberg, he's had so many other kind of like shows, whether they be YouTube shows, late night TV shows, etc. Yeah. He is someone that I look up to when it comes to, I listen to his questions. Like they have guests on, and their whole shtick is that they're very laid back, super casual. But when they have guests on, it's like he can't turn off that personality wise. And he's asking some of the best questions. And, straight up, I keep a pen and pad by me when I listen to certain podcasts that I like the host, and I write down their questions. Like, I'm like, how can I take this question, convert it in my own voice, and make it topical to comic books. So it has been nice listening to other podcasts, getting inspiration. For me, it's a lot of inspiration listening to the hosts and how they ask questions, how they conduct, seeing how I can improve things. And it's been wonderful. Even your show, man, there's been a few questions that you've asked where I'm like, that's a cool way of asking it. I love seeing how people can add certain flair to like very straightforward questions,
Right.
Because there are some questions that you can't avoid asking, especially if it's a guest first time on the show. You're going to want to know, like, it'd be helpful to know where they're from, how they got into so-and-so.
Right.
But if you could find a unique way or, to ask it or present it, I'm always looking for those.
Yeah. And asking questions is hard because you want to make sure that you write a question in a way that allows for follow-up, that allows you to sort of throw yourself into the conversation and, not just rely on notes or prep or any of that. You want to be able to just feel like you're having a real casual talk where you're learning about someone. It's not the easiest thing in the world to do. So, I think more so than learning ways to approach from other podcasts, I try to take notes on how someone goes about feeling comfortable, like how they go about letting go. And I just try to, when I feel like someone feels very comfortable, I just take note of that. I'm like, yeah, you just can't be looking too far ahead in the conversation. Sometimes you just got to let it be what it is. And I think that's something that's cool to think about.
Well said. Well said. We had a few folks join. If we want to give them a quick shout out.
Yo, hit 'em.
I see. Let me see. I'm gonna try to scroll up a little. We had the Simpsons man join. Shout out.
Yo, what up?
We had Steph Buchanan join. Shout outs. Hill Dog join. What up? What up? Life Alozo join. Yo, big ups. Kyle Camarello. Shout outs to them. Polo A La Crema. Rudolph.jpg. I love it anytime people use .jpg.
Yeah, I like that.
D the Destroyer and Island Blue 07, as well as Midgemac as well. Shout out to
everybody. Thanks for coming through. Well, Botter, so, as we sort of wind it down, I guess we're getting near that time. What's next for the podcast? We like to close these out talking about what we got coming up. Mine are going to be pretty similar to things I've said in other episodes, but what do you got coming up?
Okay, so for the Short Box podcast, this Sunday, we're recording another Artist Spotlight episode. Some of my favorite episodes we record, and I think it's definitely some of our best work. So our Artist Spotlights are, we dedicate one episode to talking about one comic book artist, usually like a comic book legend that has a body of work that we can spend like a good hour talking about, right? We want to give them props. Well, this week, we're talking about a lesser known comic book legend. Her name is Marie Severin. It was voted on by our patrons, by our Patreon subscribers. We wanted to put more of a spotlight on women in comics, really dope ass female comic book creators. And we decided to go for Marie Severin. She's an older comic book legend from the 60s and 70s. She was integral to Marvel's early days. She would pencil, she of course drew covers. She would also fill in for certain jobs that needed to be done. So if an artist couldn't get a cover done in time, she'd wrap up the pencils. If someone needed an inker for some last minute job, she had it. And if you're in the comic book, you that name definitely means something to you. But I want to say, I think 2 years ago she passed away, and of course all these really great things about her had come to the light a little too late in her career, if I'm being honest. But it's going to be fun to talk about her on the Short Box podcast and kind of give her flowers then, as well as introduce our listeners who might not be familiar with a lot of these older legends,
right.
To give them a spotlight. So we're looking forward to that. That episode will come out next Wednesday. And then I got an interview lined up with a really interesting guy. His name's Eli Schwab. I hope I'm saying that last name correctly, but
probably not. Go ahead.
Probably not. But he's interesting in the sense that he is the founder of this comic book Facebook group that I'm in. It's called Cartoonist Kayfabe Ringside Seats. He's a really big fan of Cartoonist Kayfabe. Big shout out to Ed Piscor and Jim Rugg. That he started a Facebook group for people who love comic books, especially indie comic books, creator-owned comics, people that love to make comics. I'm part of the Facebook group. They always have great discussions. I always get great recommendations. But he's put out 2 projects that has really garnered my respect. One was a fanzine, a thick fanzine of an homage to the old Wizard magazines. So he made his own Wizard magazine using like different artists that he knew and whatnot. And that project was awesome. And he recently helped spearhead another project called Image Grand Design. I'm trying to hold it up here.
Oh,
You podcast listeners can't see it, but I mean, dude, look at the size of that, man.
Crazy.
Like, it is great quality. I mean, it's a nice, graphic novel sized book, but essentially the premise is that him and his team worked with 30 other artists around the world to collect comic book strips that they were making, interviews, pinups, like anything they could find for this big book paying homage to the heyday of Image Comics in the 90s. So I'm gonna have him on the show to kind of talk about, building a community of like comic book fans and then undergoing like projects like these. Cause as someone that, project management is my day job. So I understand the level of, it's tough to coordinate people, especially, when you're not necessarily paying them. So I'm interested to know like how he went about, doing these really great projects just based off the strength of like, hey, I love comics, you love comics, let's make a great project.
Right.
So we got that interview next Sunday. I'm looking forward to it. What about you? What you got going on for Simpsons Greater Than?
That all sounds awesome. I'm really excited for that. As for Simpsons is Greater Than, we have another Q&A coming up with you, no less. And also the thing about that is I'm actually a little bit late on that because I just sort of got my weeks crossed on like days to record and things like that. So everyone, or most of you know that I'm trying to do Q&As with Botter as my co-host once a month or the last episode of every month. I'm a little bit behind on that. So we're going to drop one probably next week or by the time you're hearing this on the podcast feed, like 2 weeks ago. And then I have Bill Oakley coming up. That episode is done and should be out really soon. And lots of cool stuff. I've got like at least like 5 or 6 episodes that are like confirmed but not recorded. So I need to, get my ass to work. But some cool stuff coming for Simpsons is Greater Than. I'm going to try to start doing more. If anyone came over here from Bart of Darkness, I'm going to try to start doing some more live stuff with Bart of Darkness with like just stuff from the room. Maybe room tours or just like, more videos where I maybe go over some stuff, talk about some stuff. And who knows what that content will end up being used for. But I'm going to try. The content is here. I'm trying to do, a lot of stuff. I'm trying to find time to do even more stuff. And so it's going to be, it's going to be a good May and June, I think, for Simpsons is Greater Than. Some cool stuff coming up.
Oh, that's going to be strong. I'm looking forward to the Q&A because we're recording it this weekend. And you're switching it up a little bit, right? And I mean, this is probably only applicable to the folks that are on the IG Live. Hint, podcast listeners start joining the IG Lives.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You're switching up this month's Q&A because instead of just questions from your listeners and your followers, you're going to be reading like some unpopular Simpsons opinions, right?
Yeah, so this is something that might become an ongoing thing on the podcast. I'm unsure about that. We'll see what the response is like. But I really am interested, and let me be clear. I'm not interested in the person that wants to tell me the thing that they've said a million times about, the Simpsons stopped being good after season. Yeah. I love you all, but shut the fuck up. Okay, I don't want to hear that shit anymore. But you
don't want no mansplaining.
No, I like hearing the things that people argue with their friends about. Like I like hearing when people say like, everyone loves this episode, but I actually sort of think it sucks. Or everybody loves Milhouse. That's the example I make a lot. Everyone loves Milhouse, but I actually kind of think he's annoying. I don't think Ralph is funny. I like these sort of takes because I think it's interesting to expand on things that everyone assumes is like conventional wisdom. Like everyone agrees on this thing and that thing, but that's not always true. And I think you get some really interesting feedback. There's a couple people that, had some unpopular opinions that I think I will most likely throw in the trash and not read because I find them so incorrect.
I was going to say, they're so trash. You're like, this ain't going on my show.
Yeah, not only is it an unpopular opinion, but it's horrible, and I'm not going to read it and make people listen to it. No,
like that.
No, I'm just kidding. But, if you're watching this right now on Instagram Live, if you're listening to this 3 weeks in the future, 2 weeks in the future, whatever it is, maybe I'm doing this again by now. So go back and leave a comment on whatever post corresponds to that, or just send me an email send me an email at simpsonsisgreat@gmail.com. And, let me know an unpopular opinion that you have, just so we can talk about it. And maybe I'll bring it up in another episode. But yeah, I'm trying to add to the Q&As, maybe give them a few more layers. So that's something we're gonna mess around with.
That's a cool project. That's a cool way to like switch it up. I think you're gonna get a lot of feedback, a lot of interesting commentary.
I think so too. But I think that about does it for Pod Boys episode 4. Shout out to everyone that hung out with us. Shout out to everyone that's listening to these on the feed. The response has been fun. I hope you like the sort of raw live aspect. I do not edit these unless like an ambulance goes by. I might cut that out, but I let these just be what they are. And I hope you guys enjoy the after show vibe of these. Yes. And I hope you learn some stuff that you're not going to learn from just a normal Simpsons podcast or just a normal comic book podcast. And you get to hear me open cans of Dr. Pepper and eat Twizzlers and stupid shit like that. So, I hope you enjoy what these are. And we'll see you guys in a couple weeks.
Sounds good. All right, man. Appreciate it, Pod Boys.
Peace.